So here I am. This great big beast you probably recognize once I've pruned it, but because it's so full of leaf, you don't probably know which tree this was. But here you are. All this growth, believe it or not, has grown in the last 4 months. It's now the 27th of July, and since April, that means I would say the leaves started coming out maybe mid-April. All right, let's count April. April, May, June, July. In 3.5 or 4 months, it's grown so much. So can you imagine if you didn't prune it for 1 year, the tree would be this wide up to here. So let's do it. So this tree is done every year and it's in a big pot. So this is an English elm, and there is a choice of 2 fronts because it's got a nice hollow trunk which is possible as a front. So let's see what we can get out of it. What a shame all this has to be cut, but we have to. But while these branches are growing, it makes the tree strong, and it helps to thicken the trunk. Although not that I need the trunk any thicker, it's already very thick. So let's have a go. So you must be wondering, how do I know what to prune? Well, again, the general principle is to give it a rough shape. Once you give it a rough shape, then you can go into the tree and refine it further. So let's give it a rough dome shape. This is always the most practical advice I can give you. A dome shape from the tree all round is what we start off with. So I go right around the tree because it's grown in virtually every dimension, front, back, side, the whole lot. This elm, this English elm, incidentally, was a tree I took out of this hedge over here. And the English elms up to the 1960s was a very common tree that grew wild, and it was used in parks a lot. But there was a disease called the Dutch elm disease, which wiped out all the English elms. So there are very few English elms left. Only a few suckers that keep growing in the hedgerows, that means in the hedges. But no sooner that they become a bit big that the Dutch elm disease can affect it, so I've been told. But if you keep it small, you won't have any problem with the disease. And the disease is caused by a beetle, apparently, that creates a virus in the tree. So what I'm doing at the moment is simply topiary. For want of a better word, this is simply good old topiary, which bonsai really is. Many people try and make bonsai more sophisticated than it ought to be, but there's no need for it. Look at the amount I'm pruning off. I should time it, but I reckon I can do this whole tree in 10 minutes, maybe less. But it's not a race, it's just about getting it right. Some people work fast, some people work slow. As we say, there is no right and a wrong way. It's different ways of doing things. I'm able to work fast because I can perceive the design very quickly in my mind. But following the principles that I adopt, you will see the logic of how I work. So I'm still aiming to get the overall shape first, and then we will go into the detail. I'm trying not to make it just a round shape, although this is tending to become like that. I always call it a dome shape. And for those of my critics who always like to find fault in what people do. I can just say that I love big bonsai. Bonsai doesn't always have to be small. In Japan, where they have less space, and the tradition is to make bonsai no bigger than 1 meter tall and 1 meter wide. In China, they have trees which are 25 feet tall and as much wide. One only needs to go to China to see what they get up to in bonsai. I really need a stepladder for this. But the important thing is, I don't always just do it for fun. I mean, we are a working nursery, so we have to make a living from it. And you may not believe it, we sell a lot of these big trees, otherwise I wouldn't be doing it. There you go. So if we take an overall look, I think the front of the tree is going to be somewhere from here, because it's got a lovely hollow trunk. And now I'm going to reveal the trunk. So this is the overall shape, and most people, as I say, would give their right arm for a tree like this. But to me, it's not quite a bonsai, because I need to show the detail, the trunk, and a structure to the tree. I did show in the video last year that this tree has got a beautiful hollow trunk. It's hollow right through. And now I'm going to create the pads, individual pads. I don't want the pads to be too high. So this is the first branch. I'm not sure when this branch grew. It seems a fairly recent branch. I will decide whether to keep it or not. Trying to create layers between the branches. I'm still aiming to make this the front of the tree. So I have to keep the front open. So it's very important to keep the front open, because if you can't see the trunk, then it ceases to be a bonsai. The bonsai is not so credible if you can't see the trunk. So I'm keeping this side fairly open. So that is how I'm tending to design it. But as I've always pointed out in the past, you have to keep an open mind, because should you find that the other side is interesting, then I might change the design slightly. And of course, remember also that not every tree has to have a front or a back. Sometimes a tree can be viewed nicely from every side. So don't get obsessed with the idea that every tree has to have a front and a back. It's nice if you can get it, but it's not absolutely critical. I remember when I styled this tree originally, that's all the dust coming out. This tree was quite nice from the other side, but because it wasn't hollow, I discounted using this as the possible front. But I do remember that this tree was nice from this side as well. The only trouble with the person owning this tree, if I were to sell this tree to a customer, I would need to teach them how to prune this, certainly for the first couple of years, because in each year you get so much growth, and if you're not capable of dealing with it, you will soon lose control of the tree completely. So sometimes owning a tree is one thing, but keeping it well maintained is quite another. You can see how I've opened out the tree now. I'm going to keep the option of viewing the tree from either side, because this side and the other side are both equally interesting. The principle is really creating space between the different layers of branches. So you can do it to any garden tree, especially with maples. A lot of people grow these large maples in their garden. If they only did a little thing like this, by layering the branches, it makes much more interesting tree. Look at all this we've pruned, look at this. I reckon I've taken more than half the foliage off. So it just shows how vigorous these trees are, how vigorous they grow, and how you must keep on top of it. So let's take a vote and see which we like. I think if we use this as the front, this is the view. I've opened the trunk so you can see the trunk. So this is possible. But if we look at it from the other side, you get the beauty of the hollow trunk. And if I were to take a poll or a vote, I'm sure I would get varying opinions. Some people would say they like the other side, some would say they like this side. So I leave you to choose. But I think this makes a very distinctive feature of the tree. So this is how I've grown this great big elm. So there you go. I think I have achieved it in 10 minutes. And I'm going to do 2 more. Not as big as this, but equally interesting. Now I'm going to show you an elm which I've just taken out, not out of the ground because the roots were in the ground. This is the elm that I'm going to work on, but I had to take it out of the ground because the roots from the pot, can you see how thick these roots are? They grew into the ground here. Look at the size of the root. That root has gone in there, and this is another root. There's several roots like this, 3-4 roots. Now I'm not going to waste these because I did tell you about root cuttings, and all these will become plants. In fact, if I were to cut this and pot it up, I will get a new plant. So certain trees, elms, hawthorns, crab apples, they all grow very easily from root cuttings. So if you were to plant this up, you will get several trees from it, and trees which have nice thick trunks. So let's see how far I have to dig to get this out. Probably not that deep. So this is a root cutting. So if I want to make a tree, I'm really teaching you about root cutting now. So that would make a new tree. This planted up would make a new tree. If I wanted to make this a tree, I get another root cutting from that. And because I've got several there, this could make another tree like so. There are enough roots to propagate. That could make a tree, so I could get about 4 or 5 from this. This is how you make root cuttings. So nothing is wasted, and I dare say if I were to dig this up, I will have a very interesting tree with beautiful roots there. But anyway, let's not get distracted because we are about to prune this tree. So let's show you this. This is not English elm, this is Siberian elm. Now Siberian elm I've been growing for the last 30 or 40 years, and many of the Siberian elms in the UK originated from me because I don't know where I got it from, but I propagated a lot of them. And the elms grow easily from cuttings, so they're very easy to propagate. So let's look at this tree to see what we can make out of it. All it needs is really a trim. And the other thing I want to point out about elms, not just the Siberian elm, but also the English elm. Now this formation here, this is like a cork bark. And when the trees grow vigorously, you get this cork formation. Like the corkbark pine and the corkbark maple, it forms this corky bark. And it comes when the tree is growing very vigorously. If the tree is not growing vigorously, you don't get this corkbark formation. So this is really not part of the original design. So we take that off. So again, the basic principle with all these trees is to go around, give it a good overall trim, get a nice conical shape, and millions of cuttings here. If I were to propagate each and every one of them, I don't know where to grow them. But believe you me, in China, where they produce the Chinese elms for export, they would probably make about 5,000 trees from what I'm pruning. The elm is one of the easiest plants to propagate from cutting. And in the tropics, they literally propagate overnight. You stick a cutting in the ground, the next day it will root. So this is the great joy of making bonsai. They change all the time. I've just noticed a bit of the cork bark here. Such an interesting formation. Look at the cork bark here. What a beautiful texture to the branch. You don't tend to get the cork bark formation if you were to keep planting it in a pot and don't let the roots go into the ground. It's only when they become vigorous that they get this corky bark growth. You get the cork bark growth also with field maple, the English field maple. And again for the same reason. When they grow vigorously, you get that effect. So let me decide which is to be the front, which is to be the back. There is a front because it's got a nice view. If you had gone on, you will have noticed that this side has the nicest S shape. So I think this is a very nice natural front. Lots of branches. I probably don't need all that springing upwards. This also doesn't need to be there. Again, the biggest growth all have the cork bark effect. It's nice to have a choice of lots of branches, but because there's so many branches, we don't need them all. Like this one here. This one is clouding that branch, so let's take this one off. Remember, having spaces between the branches is very important, so it doesn't look like a topiary plant. Again, I can see straight away that there are some unwanted branches. If we look at this tree again, I could use this as the first branch, that is the second branch, in which case this becomes redundant. Also, this is on the inside of the elbow. Never have anything growing on the inside of the elbow. So I think we can take this one off. And wood is very hard. I'll have to refine that with a saw. So vigorous. have that corky bark. I've been looking at this tree ever since the spring, but I kept leaving it, and lo and behold, it's just run away. I think also it ran away because the roots had gone into the ground, so it became very vigorous. Had the roots not gone into the ground, it would not have grown such a lot. But anyway, it's helped to thicken the tree, make it look more mature. Because the back, we don't need to show the trunk from the back at all, in fact. Now this bottom branch is almost like a sacrificial if I wanted it. Again, lots of corky bark at the top. Lots of it. Don't think we need it all. We should get rid of it in case it gets too dominant. I think it's time to put it into some sort of bonsai pot. And we've got lots of lovely large mica and plastic bonsai pots. So this can go in that pot. I think I can thin this even more. And since it's only the end of July, we still got August, September, 2 full months, maybe 2.5 months more of growth. So we'll get lots of new branches, and this tree can be refined during that time. So that great bush has been reduced quite considerably to make it look like this. And this is how we take the tree forward. I'm going to later on with the saw refine some of these, and this is going to be the tree. So this is another elm done. Now this is a elm as well, and this is the Jacqueline Hillier elm. If you come close, you see how congested and tight the leaves are. It's almost like a herringbone effect, and it is one of those spots. You must be wondering why it's losing leaves. It's because probably our guys forgot to water it for a couple of days, but no harm, it's okay. And it's got natural driftwood where I cut it. So that's a natural shari on this tree with lovely bend. That was the main trunk which we disposed of, and that is the natural shari. It will eventually fall off, I think. I can almost feel it while I'm here. Let us do the honors. See, it is so loose, I think it's loose. It's all dead. There you are. This is what happens with wood eventually. They don't always stay forever. There comes a time when they will rot, and they will rot away. So let us record me taking this out, because although it looks nice as driftwood, it won't last forever. Look at that. All the termites and ants have got into it. So this is a natural bare trunk tree again. So the elms tend to have this habit of doing this. Pity I don't have my axe with me. Ah, there you are. Oh, it's what we call wood lice. The wood lice eat dead wood, and the wood lice has done the carving for me, so I didn't have to carve this tree. Look at it. Beautiful natural, what they call shari or sawa miki or whatever the Japanese term is. It's just dead wood. Rotted away, but the life will grow. What a beautiful effect. Absolutely natural, absolutely natural. So this is another nice tree. So this is another, I haven't done any pruning to it this year. The last pruning was done a year ago. But I think it's time it went to a big bonsai pot, and I think it'll attract perhaps another customer. So I'm glad I passed by this way. It wasn't intended for this video, but let's move on to another tree. Now this is another Siberian elm. We grow a lot of Siberian elms on the nursery, and they make exquisite bonsai. So this one is about this high, maybe a little over a meter, but all this growth, 60 to 70 centimeter long, has all grown, this growth has all grown in the last 3 months. So that's why I say they have to be constantly pruned. So let's see. Again, knowing these trees, the roots may have gone into the ground. I think it has gone into the ground. Of course, when they've gone into the ground, they make the tree grow more vigorously, but you also tend to lose control of the tree. But it makes the watering easier, because the roots take the water from the ground, and you don't have to bother about watering it so frequently. So it has the advantages and disadvantages. So all those roots, again, I will say, they could have been made into root cuttings, which I may yet do. Lots of root cuttings there of Siberian elm. I will be doing a separate video about root cuttings. There's some pretty thick roots there. Oh my God. Oh. There's a thick root in there, and all these roots, they will be all made into little plants, all those roots. So let us prune this tree. As always, multiple choices of fronts. This has been in this pot for the last 10 years. It's so vigorous. You get all these shoots coming, which we don't want. They will all be sacrificials, although I don't think it's done much. And you talk about root cuttings. You see where the suckers come. Look, that's a separate tree growing from there. So they really are prolific in the way they produce these root cuttings coming from roots further down the road. This was trained many years ago, And I kept growing in this pot, and it hasn't been repotted for must be 10-15 years because the roots keep going into the ground. So that's how it gets its nourishment. Such vigorous shoots. See, this is forming a new leader over here. This is completely out of control. If I didn't watch this carefully, this will become a second leader. So I'm going to take that out completely. If we come close with the camera, you can see how it's coming out. It's coming out from there, and this is going straight up like this. So all that is quite a problem. So I think I can take it out completely. I will just lop it with the loppers. Because while it's growing in the ground, you don't tend to notice all the defects. But that will become a serious defect. So the easiest way is to use the big loppers. I find these big loppers extremely useful. It's got so much leverage that you can cut very thick branches off. Now we're going to take all this big stuff off. I could have easily airlaid that and made a new tree, but I can't keep them all. So let's get rid of it and let's start refining the tree. And don't worry about break back. I mean, they break back from old wood so easily and readily that however hard you prune, you will get new shoots growing literally in a couple of weeks' time. And then I can choose precisely where the shoots need to be. So it's all about getting the structure right from time to time. Getting back to the structure is the name of the game. And again, looking at the tree, I think there is only one possible front, and this is from this side. The other side is not interesting at all. So this is going to be interesting. I could, if I wanted to carve that later on. It's got quite a nice crown as it is. It's got almost like a double leader, but no matter, it makes the apex more interesting. Nice dome shape. I'm not unduly worried about that. Sometimes the faults on the tree make the tree more interesting. You can see what I mean. You see that? That is the other apex. The true apex is only the front bit. I do not need the back. So there's another tree prune for you. Right, while I'm looking around, I noticed that there are many more Siberian elms. This is another one. And this one also has grown into the ground. As I say, we let them go into the ground to make the watering easier, but this eventually has to come out. And although it's a sad thing that half the tree has died, I wouldn't say half, the top on this side has died, but this will make a very nice carving job. So, although this side has died, this has got no taper at all, but the whole tree is alive. So we will probably restyle this. This will be a subject of another video on another day. So let's have a close look at some of these trees. They all produce these thick trunks so easily. Look at the roots. Look at the roots on that. Look at all these roots. So all these will become root cuttings. I'll be busy this evening making root cuttings all the time. Every single root will grow. Okay, so let's okay, now there's another one hidden there. So we've got trees hidden away all over the place. And this was also rooted in the ground. How am I going to get this out? Again, this is all 1 year's growth. Now I will just cut the long branches off so I can see what I'm doing. And then I'll have to dig the tree out of the ground. I don't get worried about this. It's all part of the natural growth process. And from time to time we deal with them. But while it's growing, it's getting interesting, and I dare say we're in for a nice surprise, because although I haven't checked what is at the bottom, I can bet you anything that's going to be a very interesting tree at the bottom there. Of course, all these trees have taken years to grow. And of course, what you can't replace is the time. They've taken years to grow, so the aged effect, or the patina, I would say, of the tree is going to be very interesting. It's so badly rooted into the ground. I may have to bring a spade to get it out. I don't want to break the tree. I'm lucky we had some rain yesterday, because if it was 2 weeks earlier, it would be hard as rock. Oh, 10 minutes later, we had to dig a hole and cut the roots. So this is the shortest tree, but was the hardest to get out. So let's pull it out. So many roots. So these have just been growing naturally. Let's pull it out, we get a better view. Absolutely beautiful tree. All grown naturally. Let's pull it out and we'll get a better view. Let's get this old fellow out of the way. A lot of the shoots off, all those long shoots were pruned off, and underneath is a most interesting tree. Completely unplanned, because this is not how we designed the tree initially. And in fact, if anything, the top of the tree died. So the original design was lost. But as a result, what has grown subsequently is probably more interesting than what we had planned to begin with. So if you look at it from this side, you see, look at the nice craggy bark. This could be the front from here. Now these I'm not sure about. Let's look at it from the other side, because before I cut anything off, I've got to decide which is going to be the front and which is going to be the back. As I said, all this is natural growth. We did not plan to make the tree like this. And in fact, this tree is ever so interesting, ever so interesting. This side is probably as nice. I was looking at that originally at the front, but this could be the front as well. And this is all natural. The hollow and the dying has been absolutely natural. A lot of coarse branches that have grown from being grown in the ground. I'll get that off. I don't think we need those two little branches. I can get rid of that. Yeah, lots of coarse branches have grown, which, as I say, we don't need at all. So this tree has trained itself naturally, and if we were to retrain it, there's a rogue shoot here. If we have a close look, you can see where the tree has gone berserk because it's growing in the ground. This is a new shoot, the color is different. So this was growing vigorously. So this was the new dominant leader. And that wasn't the original part of the plan, so let's get rid of that. Get back to the original design. So we still come back to this. So we will train the tree with this as the front. I'm going to clean that up. And it will be a very nice, natural looking twin trunk tree. How interesting is that? So again, hardly any training at all. I think it's a bit dominant at the back. You can see it has a very thick trunk. Cut it off with the lopper. This will be replanted with this as the front, and this will become very desirable for whoever wants to buy it. There you go. I've worked on a lot of elms, but while I'm here, I will just show you some other elms I've been working on a week ago. This, believe it or not, was growing about 10 foot across. And I cut off all the branches just to get back to the trunk. This is the new leader. I'll probably make that the leader. I could probably air layer that. And that's going to be one hell of a big bonsai. That's another big bonsai. It's rooted in the ground. I'll need a digger to get it out. I can't get it out. So this is some of these crazy large trees that I make. All ideal for carving. Look at the detail of this one. If you come in the front, it's got a massive trunk from this side. And you can see the nibari. I'll just get the pine out of the way. That's going to be a beautiful tree for carving. Again, reminiscent of all these crazy Chinese trees that you find growing in southern China with massive trunks like this. So a twin trunk, natural style, and that's going to be the leader. And I'm going to look forward to doing this one. So there are no end of projects here. You see, look at a bit of detail here, how the tree calluses, you know, the bark rolls over. So even when it dies naturally, you get all this. So there's no artificial carving with carving tools. This is all natural. Nature's work of rotting and then callusing over. So this is going to be one hell of a tree. So I hope these videos have infused you into making interesting trees. And if you look around your native habitat, I'm sure you can find trees that grow either in your garden or grow in neighbors' gardens, and you can make bonsai from these large trees. So this is hopefully an interesting exercise in the Siberian elm and the English elm.